Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're joining us on Zoom, just look at the top of the bottom of your screen, wherever your Zoom controls are. You should see a little Q&A button there. Click on that, type in your question, hit submit, and I'll get to those at the end of the session. If you're joining us on YouTube, just use the live chat function wherever it happens to be on your device and type in your question there, and I'll get to those at the end as well. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's National Diagnostic Technical Trainers. Been in the training department, starting my 10th year in the training department, and I've been traveling around North America helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. So I had about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So I worked in a Subaru dealership. And over time, I guess, just became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up with the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bay. And before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is navigating information systems. So towards the end of last year, if you weren't aware, we had a poll of you viewers, and we wanted to see, what do you want to learn more about? So these last classes all of the classes we've been doing so far this year have been based on viewer feedback and what they want to learn more about. So this one is, I want to learn more about how to navigate information and how to navigate wiring diagrams, which is more specific. So we'll actually get into that a little bit deeper as we go. But really, what I like to say nowadays is wrenches don't fix cars, information fixes cars. And that's very true, especially nowadays with how complex vehicles are and how complex vehicle problems can be with all these interwoven systems that all affect each other. Really, the wrench is a very small part of it. It's more the information. When asked, and I've spoken to many folks out there in my tours around, and most techs agree that most of their diagnostic time is spent looking up information. The better part of that hour that we try to give for that default diag time is spent trying to find information, looking things up, making sure I get the right information before I even go through my diagnosis. Now, of course, that's going to decrease your efficiency as a technician. We want to speed up diagnosis. So access to information needs to be easier. And we have a few different ways we're going to talk about how at least Snap-on makes it easier for you. There are other ways to access information out there, but we want to try and make it as easy as possible for you. And a good way to make it easier on yourself is to have a good workflow. I want to have a standardized workflow that I can work through all the way from the pre-scan through my post-scan and diagnosing and fixing the vehicle in between. So, of course, it does all start with that pre-scan. I want to check all the systems for codes, whether it's a code-related issue or not, or an engine light, should I say, customer complaint is engine light. Maybe the customer's complaint is nothing related to that, but we still want to do our initial checks. We want to do a pre-scan and see maybe there is something in the vehicle that is causing this problem. So we'll do our pre-scan, check all the systems. Then when we get to a starting point, maybe a code or maybe a symptom or what have you, we're going to go through our actual diagnosis to determine what is causing this issue with the vehicle. So it could be anything out there. It just kind of depends on the situation. Then once we've diagnosed it, we fix the problem. We go through our actual repair. Then after the repair, another important step that sometimes gets overlooked nowadays is recalibration, resets, relearns, things of that nature. I need to reset the system somehow. Many parts on vehicles nowadays, when they're replaced, they need some sort of a recalibration, a reset, a relearn, something of that nature. Oxygen sensor heater circuits need to be reset. Throttle bodies need to be relearned. If I replace a cam or crank sensor on certain vehicles, we need to do a reset or a relearn after that as well, so it can learn the proper timing for the vehicle. All sorts of things. There's a whole host of different things on a vehicle that may need to get done depending on the vehicle. Then, of course, after we're done, we're going to road test the vehicle and then take that post scan. So we want to verify that everything is now all good with the vehicle after we've completed everything with the recalibrations and the repairs. Before all this, though, there's a whole other set of steps that we may need to worry about. As soon as the customer gets there, it starts with that. So we have to intake the customer. We want to capture the customer complaint. Then after that, we want to road test the vehicle. Right? We want to be able to verify that complaint, verify that the customer said is what they mean, because sometimes it makes a beep boop bop noise. What's a beep boop pop noise? We don't know. We might need to go drive the vehicle in order to duplicate the problem. And there's a few good ways to figure out where that problem may lie, using maybe freeze frame data, things of that nature, to see, what is the problem with this vehicle. When does it happen? Does it happen cold? Does it happen warm? Etc. Then, of course, we want to inspect the vehicle as well. We want to go all the way around. A lot of shops started doing like digital vehicle inspections. So that's one great way to do it. You go through the checklist, green, yellow, red, and so on, inspect the vehicle, try and uncover the cause and maybe some other issues that may be going on with the vehicle that perhaps the customer is not aware of. So first step, intake the customer, determine their complaint. What is their problem? We got the sample drivability worksheet over here that you would actually hand to the customer, put it on a clipboard or what have you, give it to the customer and have them tell you what their problem is. And since this is standardized, hopefully it avoids that losing it in translation between the customer and the service writer, whoever's intaking the customer. What's my problem? Do I have a starting problem? Is it an engine running problem? Is it a poor idling? Is it poor running? Automatic transmission problem, etc. It's going to tell you, does it pull it aside? Is it a poor handling problem? Explain your noise, other problems. When does it happen? Always, often, occasionally. Is it in the morning, in the afternoon, anytime? Engine temperature, cold, warm, hot. Whatever it happens to be, it gives you a standardized checklist to give to your customer, and the customer can walk through that and tell you what their problem is without having to lose that translation, like we said. So is it a drivability problem? Is it a no start? Is it a noise? Is it a drivetrain problem? Is it an electrical problem? By using this worksheet, like I said, it helps us narrow that down and figure out what exactly the problem is. Then once that's done, we can then go through and do a check on it, right? Perform a road test, perform a pre-scan if it's a drivability problem. Even if it's not a drivability problem, a lot of times it could be a noise. Maybe I got a grinding noise. Maybe it clicks when I turn left or right. Could be any of those things. So we want to do the road test to see if we can duplicate the customer's problem, of course. Then perform a pre-scan on the vehicle, see if there's any codes in the system. Once we've determined the problem, your Diag strategy is going to depend on what the problem is. If I have a code, it's going to be one thing. If I don't have a code, it's going to be another thing. If it's a drivability problem and I have no codes, well, first off, we're going to want to check TSBs. We're going to want to check SureTrack or other experience-based information. And then, of course, we want to remember, if it is a drivability problem in this example, we want to remember the basics of combustion and need to have fuel, air, spark, and compression. If I'm missing any of those things, the vehicle is not going to run correctly. Or if any of them are off in the incorrect ratio, it's going to cause a drivability problem on the vehicle. I want to check on my fuel trims. I want to see, is there an ongoing problem with the vehicle? Do I have positive or negative trims? I want to check the fuel pump. I want to check the fuel injectors, especially if it's that sort of drivability problem. Check the ignition system. There's my spark. Mechanical for my compression. I can use pressure transducers. I can use a whole host of different things to check my mechanical condition of my engine. So let's talk information. Once I've kind of determined what the issue is we're trying to find, and then how I'm going to go about finding it, first thing we want to check, really, I would say in pretty much any instance, and this is just probably the dealer tech in me, but the first thing we want to do in any situation where we have a customer problem is we want to check TSBs. Has the manufacturer already found this problem on this vehicle? And then if so, how do they solve it? I forget what the percentage is, but a manufacturer usually will not release a TSB unless it fixes a pretty high percentage of the vehicles found with this problem. And then if a large percentage of the vehicle present with this problem, then it becomes maybe even becomes a recall at that point. But technical bulletins definitely needs to be the first place you go. So in this case, I have a BMW, and we're in shop key right here. And this is the example I'm going to show you is in shop key. Mitchell Pro Demand is going to look exactly the same, except it's going to say something different on the top corner. But though that's, of course, our information system. You should be able to get TSBs in, pretty much any information systems that's out there. It's just a matter of whether or not you have access to them early enough to get to this problem. So, for example, the way we do TSBs is we will receive them from the manufacturer immediately, because everything's digital nowadays, right? So we just get it immediately from the manufacturer, same time that the dealership would get it. And then within 2 to 8 weeks, depending on where we are in production cycle, it will end up in here and available to you, either in here or on our scan tools if you have a scan tool that has TSBs as well. So that's pretty quick. That's much faster than anybody else in the industry. So within 2 to 8 weeks, you will have the same information that the manufacturer has. So I think that's pretty great. That's a big time saver, a big help for you. So in this case, we plugged in engine runs rough. We looked it up as a symptom. And then if we just go to running rough, we come up with our, this is what we call our card landing page. So these different cards here, they kind of look like index cards, right? On these different cards, it's going to show you a different category of information. And by the way, these are laid out just like you would want them to be in a logical workflow. So I want to start with my TSBs. Then I want to check my experience-based information. Then maybe I want to see what the OEM has to say about it. Then if there's any other tips in there. So it goes, if I read it like a book, top to bottom, left to right. First thing we always want to go in is TSBs. And that's what we're talking about in this section anyways. So in this case, we have a drivability problem, and it looks like we have 2 under engine control. So we'll go there. And then there's one that says engine misfire due to a failed ignition coil. So this says, according to BMW, an important note, the current ISTA misfire test plan. So ISTA is their factory tool, so that they use test plans when they go through and try to diagnose problems. So the current misfire test plan for these engines can be lengthy to complete and does not provide an effective method to diagnose a faulty secondary ignition component. So they've established that, hey, we have a little bit of an issue here with our tool. So this bulletin will help you determine what the problem is. If basic diagnosis determines the cause to be a faulty coil, follow the inspection and replacement procedure listed below. Make certain to test drive the vehicle after the repair is complete to verify the effectiveness of the repair. And that's a very important, of course, post-road test. Only if misfire faults or rough running are still present, continue with further diagnosis as recommended in the misfire test plan. Since the remaining ignition coils have been subject to the same operating conditions, it will be necessary to follow the appropriate procedure listed below, specific to the engine, to ensure the best customer-oriented repair. And then so it goes on and tells you if you have a Bosch coil in these vehicles, Bosch coil in any hole, in any cylinder, needs to be replaced with a Delphi coil. Simple as that. So apparently they come to find out that these Bosch coils were causing issues, were causing ignition issues on the vehicle. So if you find a vehicle with a misfire problem or a rough running problem, and you find these Bosch coils in there, you need to swap them out for Delphi coils, and that should solve your problem. Seems pretty cut and dry. Seems like they look a bit different. That Delphi coil looks like it's got a bit of metal around the outside, a little bit of a metal jacket instead of just all. That might be metal under the rubber, I suppose, but just the electronics inside, I'm sure, a little bit different. So maybe they've discovered that caused the problem. But this is, once again, the manufacturer saying, okay, we found this problem. Let's put a bulletin out about it, and this is going to fix the majority of the vehicles that have this problem that this covers. So fix the Bosch coils, put in Delphi coils. Easy enough. Once I've checked my TSBs, the next thing I'm going to want to check is experience-based information. What have other technicians done in this case? Now, in our instance, in Snap-on's instance, we have a database of over 2.25 billion, that's billion with a B, 2.25 billion real-world repair orders. And it bases it, what that bases it, the information off of that. So what has happened in the real world on real-world repair orders that real technicians have done. So the first thing here is going to be real fixes. So that is based on those repair orders and the repair orders where this vehicle shows up. What has been done to fix this problem? Oh, by the way, let me back up here a little bit. Forgot to mention this. Let's take some minute. There we go. Oh, almost. There we go. So on this vehicle, it's a 2012 BMW 328i with a 3-liter. Out of those 2.25 billion, we got almost $500 million repairs, right? A little over half a million repairs. Sorry, a little over 500,000 repairs. So 512,723 repairs based on repair order history for this BMW 328i, and that is a lot. That is a lot of repairs. So that's pretty good. Got a lot of information there. So we go into real fixes, and you see the first one's engine runs rough, replace ignition coil, replace coil and spark plugs, etc., etc. Idles rough, runs rough. We got codes and symptoms as well, so we have combinations in there. But see, the number one thing, 7,895, replace the ignition coil. Like we said, that TSB pretty much called that out right off the bat. Next one's top repairs. So you've probably seen the top repairs graph on many of our scan tools have this, both the intelligent diagnostic tools and the non-intelligent diagnostic tools. But that's what it's based on. So the bottom part of the chart is mileage. So it goes from 0 to 200,000 miles. So right there in the middle, we got 100,000 miles. This part of the graph is going to be number of occurrences at that mileage. So it looks like, if I go over to this second one, replace spark plug, it's going to be a little over 1,800 and a little less than 2,700, maybe like 2,000, 1,950, something like that. Somewhere in the middle there. It's a little bit above 1,854. So that gives us that. And then here in the middle, we got 2,781 to 3,708. Maybe it's like 3,100, 3,200 occurrences. And then this number over here, 12,000, 7,392, etc. That is based on total number on this whole chart. All right. So there's always, I get asked this question quite a bit in the last week. So it's kind of prevalent in my mind as to what that means. So that's how the graph will help you. Now, it's going to tell you the top 6 things that were done on the repair order for this problem. This is getting cleaned up a little bit too as we go forward in the next update. You get things like dry belt tensioners, valve covers, things like that. Might not necessarily be related, but it was on the repair order. So a lot of those are going to get filtered out as well. Just so you're aware. That's going to get cleaned up a little bit. But yeah, that is your common fixes. Next one's going to be causes and fixes. So this is the same data that we just looked at on the other graph, except it ties it to one of the problem children. So engine runs rough, it's this. If I go down to engine runs rough while accelerating, well, that filters it down to these 2 things, or these 3 things, or the spark plug and ignition coil at the same time, I guess, through that. So it allows us, the more information we can throw at it, the more symptoms, the more issues we can throw at it. Here's what the problem ends up being. Next one's wiring diagrams. Now, I know when I was a tech, I spent a ton of time in the wiring diagrams, just trying to figure out all these problems. Subaru, surprisingly enough, has a ton of wiring problems, at least back when I was there. I don't think it's gotten a ton better, but maybe it has. Few things that we do that others do not, though. We do have color wiring diagrams, and pretty much just about anywhere on the market now, any of your paid services are going to have these now. Used to be exclusive to us, but the exclusivity agreement ran out. So we have some other proprietary patented things that we've added to these wiring diagrams. So these are interactive wiring diagrams. First thing it does is it drops you off on the right page. So if it's a 4-page, in this case, a 4-page wiring diagram, and on page 4 is where the coils live. So that's why that is there. It also pre-highlights the wires for you, which helps big time saving. Also, if it goes off the page, in this case, it goes off to the left there, and it goes over to my relay box, and there's a fuse right there. So that'll lead me back there. If I wanted to see more information on this relay, I could click on it, and then I get some more information right here. So say I wanted to find, specifications or something like that, or removal and replacement. Here's my relay connector right there. It shows me how to take it apart and move things. And I never left the wiring diagram having to do that. I can also select any of these connectors here, and it's going to give me my connector view. right there. And there's my connector view on there right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pins. And there's my connectors. So easy enough. Try to make it as simple as possible to get to the information that you need. So let's go live and look at a few more things. All right, so I am going to pull up our tried and true Chevy Tahoe. 16 Chevy Tahoe. Okay, so there's my landing page. Like we said, a lot of things there. All starts with a code scan. So let's do a pre-scan here. I'm going to scan through all the modules, see what we got. All right. So it looks like we got 2 codes. We got a multiple cylinder misfire, engine misfire detected, P0300, and an evap problem, vent valve. So P0446. Now in this case, I am on a tool with fast track intelligent diagnostics. All right. So let's hit diagnose, and that will bring us to some more information. Now, remember how we talk about we need this information. The way this is laid out is it will give us the information in the order that we probably need to look it up. So very first thing, if I read this like a book, gives us a workflow again. TSBs, then my experience-based information, and so on and so forth. So TSBs, in this case, this is filtered down based on my code. So for P0300 on a 2016 Chevy Tahoe with a 5.3, which is the only engine option that year, or at least for that one, we got 12 TSBs for that problem. So if I click on that, there is a multitude of issues that could be there. Here's one common one. So engine misfire may be due to loose spark plug wires. So if I click on that, I'm going to see it covers pretty much anything, any of the trucks from 15 to 14 to 19 with a Vortec V8 or V6, I guess, 4.3. Pretty much any of those with the short little plug wires gives us this example right here. So this is a problem with a clip that goes missing, or maybe it pops off on the coil end of the wire, the coil end. C-clip may be missing on that wire that ends to connects to the ignition coil. So when I'm trying to diagnose a misfire, probably very rarely am I going to go to the coil side before I go to the spark plug side, because we're usually going to pull the spark plugs and all that. So you may pull the spark plug side and it looks fine, but you didn't check the coil side. And then the coil side is missing that clip, makes it loose, gives us an intermittent misfire. So that's one thing that they provide us, which is nice. Some nice pictures from the factory. Let's see, where's another one? There's something about a tick or something. Things change. Here we go. Misfire or tick noise. So if we go in there, it says it's a problem with the lifters. It's got variable lifters depending on for the cylinder displacement on demand. So they have problems with the lifters there. And what they say is if I have a misfire and I need to pull the lifters out, well, we're going to use a pair of vice grips and pry them out using the vice grips. I would think they would come up with a special tool for this, but apparently not. It seems like a little sketchy to me how we would want to do that, but yeah, that's what they're doing. They also say don't pry on the gasket mating surface, pry on the edge right there, so we don't have a problem with say a leaky valve cover at some point, or a head gasket. I guess we'd be down to the cylinder head off in this case, so we wouldn't have a leaky head gasket. I guess seems like not exactly the best way, but hey, that's what they're telling you to do. That's what they're telling you to do. Fair enough. All right, then we have our top repairs. Once again, incidents over time. And then if we go down, we have guided component testing, functional testing data. Come down here, we have more experience-based information. Tells us how many times it got fixed. That's the number one fix right there. And then we also have repair information. So if you have shop key or Mitchell, and you have a Zeus or a Zeus Plus, we have this direct link right to repair information right on the tool. Makes life a lot easier. We log in. Logs the vehicle in, and it also does a search for a code. So all of this saved me a ton of time right there. Remember how I said we want to try and get to the information as quickly and as accurately as possible. That's what we're doing here. So I didn't have to go to another computer. I didn't have to log in. I didn't have to load the vehicle details from memory, or maybe I wrote them down or something. It passes all the information between the two. So if I go over here, and then once again, we have it top to bottom, left to right, TSBs, real fixes, top repairs, etc. Specifications, it's going to be like torque specs, OEM test procedures, guided component testings in here, component tech connectors, locations, operations, tips. We also have wiring diagrams, remove and replace, after repair information, which is, do I need a reset or a relearn on this problem? And then also a parts and labor guide. But in this case, let's focus on wiring diagrams because we talked about that as well. So once again, I clicked on it. I'm going to click on the engine, and it's going to bring me down here. Now, remember what I said before, page 4 of 8. Why is that? Because it's, if I were to print this out, take this wiring diagram and print it out, which I used to do all the time. I would print them out, and then you tape them together, and you go like that. So I don't have to look for the coils because I know they're on page 4 of 8 because that's where it put me. If I open this up, once again, you'll see that the wires automatically highlight. I can click the little eyeball, dims the other wires. I can zoom in, see what's going on over here. See, I got my coils. And then I also have, see how it goes off the page here too. It goes over to number 3. Click on that, goes across. You can see there's number 3 there. Highlighting stays the same. Goes up, looks like it goes to my injection A odd side fuse. So it looks like in this case, it controls both the coil, the fuse, and I'm thinking at the bottom here, it might go to the fuel injectors back across the page here. So it's going to go across, and that's going to go up to where my fuel injectors are, which is in a different spot. So there's my coil. Other things we could do. For example, if I wanted to find this pesky little ground right here on the rear of the left cylinder head, where exactly is that? Where am I going to find it? So I can click on that blue link. It's going to open this up. And let's say I want to find location. It's going to give me a location view right here. And it's going to be number 1. And there it is on the left cylinder head on the back. It's like a big bolt with like one of those cam lock washers. And that is where my ground is. Apparently some problems can be had with this ground. It can cause multitude of issues on the vehicle. So that's a good thing to know where that is in that case. And I never had to leave the wiring diagram. Once again, here I am in the wiring diagram. And as I said before, this was also spurred upon by someone saying, well, I would like to have more information on how to navigate information and navigate wiring diagrams. Because when it comes to diagnosing a vehicle, wiring diagrams, a lot of times, especially with electrical issues, obviously we need a wiring diagram. So by and large, the manufacturers are going to use pretty much the same type of nomenclature. So in this case, we got a couple diodes there. We got the coils here for the actual coil, the ignition coil, got the primary and secondary side. Over here is a light emitting diodes. It's got a diode with a circle around it emitting stuff. So there's your LED light emitting diode. There's a couple of them right there, etc. So for a frame of reference, we want to close out of it. And I want to go to just my wiring diagrams themselves. I can come in here. There's also a lot of connector views, etc. But I want to go to using diagrams. And then we have a few different things. So first this one's kind of important too, color abbreviations. So if I wanted to know what's what, so black is BLK or BK or B, depending on where we're at. Clear, CLR, CR, or L, etc. So you can just go down this list. Red is red, or ERD, or R. Depending on what kind of diagram you're looking at, it's going to give you that. And then it'll say, maybe it's gray with light blue. So GRYLTBLU would be gray with a light blue stripe. There's different ways that they do it. We also have diagram symbols. So there's a quick reference guide here for that. So first thing is like battery. So I got my positive, my negative, and all the plates in the middle. Circuit breaker. Got a clock spring. It's shows the rotation there because that's in my steering wheel. Single connector, double connector, diode. Pretty much any manufacturer uses that. It's very similar for a diode. Fuse, fusible element, fusible link. heater element, defogger grid, a horn. Speakers sometimes look like that as well. Knox sensors, going to sense that. Got a signal side and a ground side. LED, once again, like I said, it's a diode, but it's got a circle around it. It's emitting light. Come back up to the top. We got a single element light. You can see the filament in there. Double element light, 2 filaments, a motor. Looks like a little motor. Resistor, either way. A sensor, in this case, it's a thermistor. So we have a variable resistor here where it kind of goes up and down. We have a solenoid. We have a solenoid with a diode on the side, solenoid with a resistor, solenoid with a resistor and a diode. Then we have a single pole switch and dual pole switch. So just a couple examples of what you would see. Pretty much any wiring diagram the manufacturer comes up with is going to kind of look like that. Let me go back to that random misfire and see if we can get a factory diagram out of here too, because we do have factory wiring diagrams in here. Let's see. Yeah. So ignition controls, coils bank 1. That's where we were before. So you saw what our wiring diagram looked like. And then here's the one from GM. So it's going to be pretty close. We got a relay here. We got a fuse. That's going to come down. We got a couple connectors there. GNBU. So that's green with blue, violet with blue, blue with violet, violet with blue, etc. Come down here. We got a couple diodes. The coil looks a little bit different the way they draw it, but that's your coil right there. And then we got the spark plug, of course. And there's your ground. There's that G130 we looked up earlier. So ground looks a little different the way GM does it, but that is pretty much the way we're going to read through it. So if we understand how a component works, here it's grounds inside the ground control module. It looks like that. It looks a little bit different. So a couple different ways of doing that. A couple different ways of showing it. Just kind of depends on the manufacturer. Every manufacturer, like I said, has little idiosyncrasies in between them. But by and large, the way they word them, the way that they draw them out, it's going to be fairly similar between them. So that is that. Get out of here. That is my time for today. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. So next week, we will be discussing immobilizer systems operation. Now, I know this is kind of a hot topic with immobilizers and keys and programming, things of that nature. There are a lot of things to discuss around that with the legalities of some things, especially newer systems, pretty much 2010 and newer. They have secure digital rights models that they use, locksmiths licenses, security professional ID numbers, things of that nature. So we'll talk through how does the immobilizer work, kind of at a high level, because most manufacturers it's pretty similar. And then how would I go through and the different components of it? How would I test it? How are they laid out? And then we'll definitely get into like NASTIF and the SDRM and all of that we need to deal with as well when it comes to vehicle security professionals and being a professional person with the security systems and immobilizers on these vehicles and doing it right and making sure we don't have any issues with the customer. Right. So check it out next week, same time, same place, 6 and 9 Eastern. If you want to go register for Zoom, go to snapon.com/OT. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. Eastern, like we're doing right now, goes to YouTube. So youtube.com/snapon diagnostics. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and ring the little bell, all that good stuff, because it helps with that algorithm. Make sure that you can see more of our stuff out there on YouTube. And we just crossed 20,000. We just crossed 20,000 subscribers. So I'd like to I appreciate all of our current subscribers. And if you're not, give it a like, give it a subscribe. Would be much appreciated there as well. If you want to see any of our previous topics, they are also on our YouTube channel. So there's a playlist for live training. So we have 57 different episodes right now, with more to come as we're coming up in mid-March. We'll be starting a new line of 5 more, with 10 more weeks worth of content. So anything from ADAS, data bus testing, variable valve timing, hybrids, driver comfort systems, a lot of different information out there that's readily available for you. You can go watch it anytime, and it is free, so you can't really beat that. Next thing, we'll get to Q&A. So I don't see any questions on, well, actually, I think I got a couple questions. So hold on one second too. I just realized I made an error, a tragic error, which I need to fix. So just give me 1 second. I just need to copy and paste the slide out of another presentation. So let's do that and that and that and that. There we go. All right. So back to this. So Q&A, got a couple questions. Before we get to those, though, I'd like to make sure we know that we also have free product training available for our different scan tools. Now, it is a little bit different than what we were doing last year. We do have a new trainer with us. Keith Ray has actually been with us for a long time. Came over with Sun. So he's been around a very, very long time with Snap-on and Diagnostics. He's very knowledgeable. I've been working with him really since day one here at Snap-on, because he actually trained me when I first came on as a sales rep. So giant wealth of knowledge, but we have changed the times a little bit. So it's 6:30 Central only. We're doing one class a night. Wednesday will be on Zeus, and then Thursday is on Apollo and Triton, kind of together, because Apollo and Triton, the first scanner part, they're identical anyways. So they are about 2 hours long still, with a 5-minute break in between. First part's on scanner functions, set up the tool, buttonology, things of that nature. Then after the 5-minute break at the second hour is going to be on scope and meter and guided component testing. All of that is going to be involved. So go check him out, snapon.com/OT. He only goes to Zoom. So it's kind of more of a personalized, you can ask questions, things of that nature. So go check him out on Zoom there, snapon.com/OT to sign up. All right, now we get to Q&A. So I got one question on Zoom. Let's see. Gerardo asked me if I'm ready for Vision. Yeah, I am ready for Vision. I actually leave on Thursday. So hopefully come up and say hi. We don't have a booth this year, but I'm doing 2 sold out classes on hands-on with the Zeus Plus. So hopefully if you are going to Vision, hopefully we're able to sign up for that before it did sell out. It's a 3-hour scope class, hands-on with the Zeus Plus, going to go from the basics all the way through, networking, CAN bus, multi-channel, and then going through ignition as well. So we're going to cover as much as we can in that 3 hours. There is a lot of capability with that tool. So Gerardo, if you're signed up, excellent. We'll definitely see you there. And I definitely appreciate you being able to get in and sign up. So definitely come say hi, and we'll have a chat when we're there. Let's go to YouTube. So Quinn, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining as always. Same to you, Nick. Thanks for joining us at very late in the evening. I know I'd probably be in bed by 11 o'clock, but thank you for that. Abel, thank you for checking in, and thank you for joining us tonight. Quinn Hall says, hey, just a friendly reminder to remember to like the video and help the algorithm. Very good. That'll help us, gain more subscribers and be able to provide more content to you all. Anthony, thank you for joining us. He says, happy to have navigated here today. Well, happy to walk you through some navigation. Joe says, thank you. Always look forward to seeing you, and I appreciate that. And then Joe kind of got cut off on his second comment there. It looks like he got another question. Speaking about information, got cut off. So hopefully we can finish that question here in a second. I'll give you a little bit to go through that. I know there's a little bit of a delay on YouTube as well, so we got to give them a little bit of time to get through that. I am certainly very excited to go to Vision. This might be my second time there, first time presenting. A lot of other great trainers that are there. So hopefully you're able to get in a few of the classes. Hopefully I'll be able to get into a couple of the classes too. I don't know if I'll necessarily have all the time in the world to do it. And a couple of the classes I wanted to see are sold out as well. So that happens. No big deal. That's not a bad thing when things sell out. That means people are interested. And that means I know there's a lot of you out there that are just constant training, learning and bettering yourselves. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing to learn more about the vehicles that we're fixing nowadays. So Joe, I am not seeing any more question there. So if you want, you can always email me. So let me see if this comes up. Okay, so if he can't get his question out, he can always email me as well. Thank you, Matt, for joining. As always, you're one of our other very, very constant people that come in here, and we definitely appreciate that. One of the people that show up week in and week out, and I definitely appreciate that. It's definitely been a wonderful doing this, and we will continue to do this as we go. So with that, looks like Joe's probably not getting his question out right now. You can always email me, like I said. Don't forget Keith, and thank you very much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to spend a little bit of time with me. Hopefully we got a little bit of a few tips and tricks for navigating our different repair information systems and the different information that we need in order to fix these cars now. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week. If you're going to Vision, I'll see you this weekend. Come up and say hi. I'm always glad to say hi, shake a hand, and so on. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next week for Immobilizer Systems. Have a good night and take care.